Hey everyone, BlackCross here, and welcome to another video game review video. And today's video is going to be interesting because this one's probably going to involve one of the most controversial video games that we have had in the past couple of years, which there's been a number of them, of course. And it is, of course, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Obviously, you're only seeing Shield, but allow me to explain. So, while technically I've only played through Pokemon Shield, this review is looking towards both Sword and Shield, because the only major difference there is obviously, number one, the different kinds of Pokemon you could potentially capture in either Sword or Shield, respectively. And in this one, I've noticed in Sword and Shield, this is like the first time they've done this, where you could have different gym leaders you could face. Those are the only major difference between the two games. Other than that, it's basically the same in terms of gameplay, in terms of concept, graphics, and everything. And of course, as what you just saw, it features the DLC from both Crown Tundra as well as Isle of Armor. And I got this version, of course, naturally, it having two of the DLCs, because to me, that's actually like the biggest point, really, is that it had the expansions in them. So in other words, I didn't have to worry about re-downloading or something like that, or potentially missing out on getting certain Pokemon that I couldn't normally get without them. So now, since I had that, you know, I was able to get the full experience. But with that being said, there are two main things I want to go ahead and address before we dive into the actual review. And that is, of course, the controversy of Pokemon. And controversy number one, Pokemon National Dex. Now, here is the thing about Pokemon National Dex. I don't care. That's maybe sad for me to say, but it is true. I do not care about the National Dex. I understand why you would want it. I understand why it needs to be on there, you know? Because the way the National Dex works is that you can have all of the Pokemons transferred into any game. And it's been like this, surprisingly, in every game, up until Sword and Shield, actually. Before then, you were able to transfer all your Pokemons from Red and Blue and Yellow all the way up, respectively, of course, to Sun and Moon, which is pretty much a big deal when you consider the fact that it's been going on for practically over 20 years so far. So to see that that chain was finally broken in Sword and Shield was kind of a shock for me, but at the same time, it wasn't a big deal for me. But for a lot of people, it was. And here's the thing. For the National Dex, I would understand it if you're wanting to transfer your, like say your favorite Pokemon. There are certain Pokemon that you don't see in Sword and Shield that you would normally see in the National Dex. And while in one case I can understand it, but on the other hand, it doesn't really matter to me, because the way I look at Pokemon is this, is that you go out there, you travel the region, and you capture the Pokemon that is available in that region. So you capture Pokemon, you train them, and that's it. That's all there is to it. So to me, completing the National Dex, or even having it for that matter, does not matter to me. I do not care, because really what I do, I just play the game, capture whatever team I want, play the game, beat it, and then that's it. I don't do anything else except for that. And the second thing that I want to address in terms of controversy is the whole Pokemon is too easy. And well, I would argue that yes it is. But only if you are trying to like overpower the game. Like if you're actually trying to become the best there ever is. The reality is you probably don't even have to, because in some cases, there are some cases where, yeah, you could actually overpower your opponent, and by accident. There was actually a point in time where I actually had to stop training or grinding because I was actually getting a little too overpowered, but that was only because of what I was doing. You know, I was trying out different things and stuff, and I was trying to, you know, kind of get a party together, and it wasn't until I realized, oh crap, I'm actually more powerful than the gym that is technically my weakness of a particular Pokemon. And I was like, oh, I'm able to kick their ass now. So, depending on what your particular case is when it comes to Pokemon, depends on if you think it is overpowered or not. There was times that it did kind of kick my butt, but there were times where, you know, it wasn't too awful of a challenge. Like, I could easily overpower it if I was smart enough to be like, okay, this Pokemon's weak against this one, this Pokemon weak against this one. But because of the fact that, you know, the last Pokemon game I played was Pokemon Platinum. Yes, that was the last game that I played before I stopped. So in other words, that's 2 generations that I have no knowledge of when it comes to Pokemon. So in other words, there was a Pokemon name that I saw that technically came out in Pokemon Black and White or Sun and Moon. I wouldn't have any idea what that Pokemon weaknesses is until I actually visibly saw it. Like, was this Pokemon a water type looking creature? Yes, it is. Is this a bug type Pokemon? Yes, it is. Unless I saw it, I wouldn't have an idea of what that weakness was. So I was kind of like gambling, being like, okay, let's see what it's gonna do. Oh, it's a Pokemon I've never seen before, you know? And this wasn't even looking at, like, Sword and Shield. This was looking at, like, you know, it could have been released in previous generations. So, there you go on that one. But, with that being said, what do I think about Sword and Shield, aside from those controversy, and aside from the detail being that I've been 2 generations of not playing Pokemon? What have I thought about Pokemon Sword and Shield? I like it. I like it a lot. In fact, in all honesty, I'm glad that I got to play Sword and Shield because of the fact that it got to finally be released on console. That was the biggest thing, the biggest selling point really when it comes to Pokemon Sword and Shield, was that it was finally on a console. For those that don't know, we haven't had a true Pokemon console experience since the GameCube. And by true experience, I mean like, you know, the traditional Pokemon game where you're going out into the area, you're adventuring, you're capturing Pokemon, and you're battling them in the traditional turn-based style. And I had missed that for a console experience because Coliseum and XD was probably the best experience when it comes to console experience. After that, the only time we ever had the true Pokemon experience was, of course, the handheld, being that of either Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, and then that's it. We never had anything aside from those games. So to have Pokemon Sword and Shield finally be the game that I got back into, I was very excited for it, and I was very happy to dive into it finally because I had just seen a lot of people, especially a particular person by the name of NBC Mikachu, tweeting out a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to Pokemon, and I was just, I kept wanting to dive into it, but I was so busy with everything else, it never really got into the whole, like, okay, let's finally dive right into it. And so I finally dove into Pokemon Shield, and from start to finish, I can actually say that I enjoyed the experience, per se. I enjoyed the experience. Is it a great game? That's where things can be a little bit tricky, because while Pokemon Sword and Shield, you know, in terms of a Pokemon game, is fine. You know, that's the thing. It's perfectly fine. But is it like, you know, was it fantastic? Was it awesome? There were some cases, yes, but then there were some cases where it was like, could have been improved, actually. Like, for example, the biggest thing that I heard a lot of people say was that the wild areas was like the best part of the game. And after playing Sword and Shield, I can definitely agree. I 100% agree that the wild areas is the best part about it. You know, you're venturing out into the open area, you're finding like tons of items, you're encountering a whole bunch of different Pokemons, different landscapes, different environments, and of course, you know, you have these different Pokemon dens that you can encounter the Dynamax Pokemon forms, you know, and these Dynamax Pokemon, while they are a gimmick, depending on the Pokemon, depends on how you look at them, because by that point, they become a boss. Because before, the only time you ever could say, quote-unquote, Pokemon felt like a boss fight was like the legendaries. And then you can arguably say that the gym leaders was sort of like the boss fights as well, because it was sort of like you were trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to take down this particular boss now, and all that stuff. Where in this one, you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I tackle on this Pokemon or this Pokemon, and stuff like that. And the legendaries was supposed to be like this ultra powerful beast that controls the nature itself. You know, I mean, hell, we even got as far as to, like, having a god Pokemon, for crying out loud, with Arceus. And at the end of the day, you kind of felt bad because it was like, okay, I was able to beat this one. Huh. Interesting. Like, I was actually hoping that the legendaries would be a lot more powerful, but, you know, because of the balancing thing, you kind of have to be careful how overpowered they are, because then that means you're going to use them every time, and they're not overpowered anymore. They're kind of meh. But the Dynamax actually helps them. The Dynamax forms actually help them become better boss fights, you know? Especially depending on the Dynamax themselves. You have the normal Dynamax forms, which is that of the den fights and stuff, where you have 4 different characters, being that of yourself and then 3 others, encountering the Pokemon itself, and you're fighting it. You're kind of trading blows and stuff like that. And of course, depending on the level of the Dynamax creature itself, it can either become very powerful or a very easy fight. But ultimately, I actually enjoyed the Dynamax themselves. I actually did enjoy it. To say that the Dynamax was like the best thing is not necessarily a big game changer, but it was definitely something that enhanced the experience. But back to the whole wild areas. The wild areas is, of course, the best thing. But then you go into the actual 3 sub areas, being that of like Route 2 through 6, I believe, and then Route 7 through so on. And this is where the game kind of goes back to its traditional roots, and yeah, I was not a big fan of it, because here's the thing. If they were to like change up those routes, you know, fix them up better to where they felt like an actual like 3D world environment, I wouldn't complain. But the route directions and stuff, the way the camera is fixated and stuff, they made them feel way smaller. So compared to the wild areas were vastly enlarged areas. And then you had the routes, and they were shrunkified. They were like very tiny. It's kind of like, okay, this is kind of a weird transition, but compare the camera angle to Kingdom Hearts 1 and then Kingdom Hearts 2. You have Kingdom Hearts 1 where the world felt enormous, but then you got Kingdom Hearts 2 where the world just shrunk in size because of the camera angle itself. And the same way can be said with Pokemon. When you're in the wild areas, the areas felt humongous and massive and like overwhelming you, and then you go to the routes and you go, this is pathetic. Like, that's the sad thing, you know? But the cool thing is that they give you a lot of trainers to fight, which is really nice to have, if it wasn't for the fact that gaining experience in this game is too easy. Like, I kid you not. You can gain quite a bit of experience in a number of ways. For example, next to like fighting Pokemon and fighting individual trainers, you also have the fact that you can capture Pokemon. You know, this is naturally the thing that Pokemon always has, which is like, gotta catch them all. But in this case, it's a lot different. So in other words, you're capturing Pokemon, and when you're capturing them, and it's a successful catch, you gain experience. Which I thought was weird. I was like, was this in previous titles? I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But it was like, as soon as I caught my first Pokemon and saw the experience, I was like, huh, well, that's pretty cool. But then it wasn't until like I started to like attain Quick Balls, which Quick Balls are where if you encounter the Pokemon as your first move, you use a Quick Ball and it's an almost instant capture. And it's kind of bad when it succeeds, because then you're gaining experience by doing nothing. Whoopsie. But the thing about it is that, and this was another thing that was controversial, was the whole, all your party members got experience. All 6 of your Pokemon that was in your party gets experience. And on the one hand, this wasn't a bad thing in my personal opinion, because this kind of went back on a previous article that someone made, where they talked to one of the developers, and they did a survey where the majority of people that played Pokemon, the first moment they got the experience chair, they immediately attached it to another Pokemon. Which, I wouldn't be lying if I said that I didn't use it, because I actually did. It was definitely one of those things where it's like, yeah, I used the experience share as soon as I got it, so yeah, I did. I used it. I'm not ashamed of it. Because, I mean, you know, that's the perfect way of training another Pokemon that may be a element weaker, but you're facing a whole bunch of trainers that have a particular element. So, in other words, you're using another Pokemon as it beats it, as it's attaining experience, so is your other Pokemon in the party. So, in other words, I don't have a big deal with the experience share, but it's really bad whenever you got like so many trainers, so many times that you could just throw a Pokeball and capture it. And when you're camping. When you're camping, you can play with a Pokemon, bond with them and stuff like that. And of course, you can make various of curries, which is... I thought it was weird that you could only make curry, but I guess whatever. But as you're making curry and stuff like that, if you successfully do it and stuff like that, the Pokemon that you bond with gain experience as well. So it kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy 15, where every single time you entered a campsite, you automatically gain extra experience based on your progression throughout the day. And this is the same way, except you're bonding with your Pokemon, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you get a lot of experience, actually. So by bonding your Pokemons, by capturing random Pokemon, just throwing the Pokeballs, beating said random Pokemons, and then beating trainers, you level up pretty quickly. Like, I'm not gonna lie, you obtain so much experience that, like I said, I almost accidentally became more powerful than the gym leaders themselves. But yeah, you can overpower them really quickly. It's kind of sad. On a plus side, though, I do like the gym missions. There were some gym missions that were like kind of boring, especially Opal. Opal was just like, really? In fact, really, in all honesty, it was actually rigged. It was a challenge because, you know, you had to answer quiz and stuff, but it was more towards what you wanted to hear. And even whenever I actually had a correct answer, there was one time that I had a correct answer, and it turned out to be wrong, and I still got defaulted into reducing my stats. And I was like, this is a rigged fight! This is a rigged fight! I was like, come on already, would ya? So I was like, oh, come on. But every other gym mission, though, I would have to say, was really fun. Like the first gym mission that you go into, which was the grass gym, I was like super impressed because you had these Wooloos, which are the sheep Pokemon, and basically you're herding them to the next goal. And while you're doing that, you're also avoiding potentially trainers, but also yippers that was scaring them away and stuff like that, and it could potentially split them off. And I was like, this is actually a really cool thing. I mean, it's a cheap gimmick, I admit, but it's a very well executed in my personal opinion. My favorite gym challenge, though, was actually the Ghost Trainer one. That one was actually really fun because it felt like a pinball, but different because as you're trying to move your little teacup ride thing, which is probably another reason why I like it so much, was that you're having to rotate the analog stick just to steer it. You know, you're having to steer it the right way to go the right direction, and you had to whirl it the left direction just to go left. And I was like, I was very impressed with that. I was like, these are just small gimmicks, but these gimmicks actually go a long way. And there was another thing where you're encountering the fire gym, where basically, you know, there were 3 Pokemon that you could capture, but the opponent could screw you over. That was a weird thing. There were 3 battles, and you had a partner trainer, but that partner trainer could screw you over from capturing a Pokemon and mess up the entire thing. You had to get at max 5 points, but you could miss a potential chance of a 6 point or even get 4 points if the opponent KO'd it before you could even capture it. So you had to be careful what moves you use to where you didn't overpower it. So it was just, I was like, this is actually making my brain think about, okay, what moves, because I'm used to using a powerful move to weaken the Pokemon. No, I can't do that, because if I did, that means the next turn, my opponent can use an effect, and it could KO that Pokemon, and I could lose an extra point. I was like, this game is making me actually think. So it was so interesting of how these Pokemon challenges were kind of mixed. They were mixed of like, okay, to This was something that I actually kind of liked it, because they were different from the normal that you used to go through. And this was technically in Sun and Moon, where you had these gym missions, and I like that. I do appreciate that. I wish that going forward that they would do a little bit more, I wouldn't say challenging, because then that would kind of steer away from like children that were playing it. But I would like a little bit more creative, I suppose you could say, creative gym challenges to see going forward. This was definitely a really good one to see, though. Probably one of the things that I was hoping for in Pokemon Sword and Shield was the introduction of voice actors. Now, voice acting is not a big deal for me. I mean, depending on how it goes, maybe you can actually deliver a good experience without actually having voice actors. And there were 0 voice actors in Pokemon Sword and Shield, aside from the factor of Pikachu and Eevee. Which may sound confusing, but considering they had previous recordings from, like, obviously, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, it's okay, it's not a big deal. It's offsetting because you're used to hearing the bit sound effect of Pokemon's, and then all of a sudden you hear Pikachu and Eevee, and you're like, okay, that kind of threw me off. But that's not a big deal. What is a big deal, though, was that you had the occasional cinematic videos. Now, these random cinematic videos is where it kind of displays itself and kind of goes on. But when you're reading the text, it kind of goes a little too fast for me. Now, I understand some people are quick readers. I am not a quick reader, so I felt like it kind of went a little too fast. And in my personal opinion, I felt like those moments would have been perfect to have voice actors. I don't know why they didn't have any voice actors. Like, even if you had to get, like, the most cheapest voice actor that was just reading off the line, at least that would make sense. I'm not too angry about the whole, like, you know, not having voice actors. But when you're doing the cinematic videos and stuff like that, and the text box kind of moves on its own, you have no control over it, you're trying to read the text and all of a sudden it goes away and you're caught, like, halfway through the sentence, and it's like, I hate those moments, because then you're like, wait, I was trying to read that, what did he say, what was the other half, you know what I mean? It's just, it sucked. I was really hoping that those moments had voice actors, but they never did, so, yeah, that kind of ruined it for me, sadly. But, while Pokemon Sword and Shield by themselves was a mix of okay to something that I enjoyed to type moments, the DLC expanded them greatly. In my personal opinion, I want more random stories in Pokemon going forward. Like, Pokemon Sword and Shield by themselves were good. Now, the cool thing is that after you beat the main game, there is actually an extra bit of story that goes on afterwards. I won't spoil it for you, but that extra bit of story made Pokemon a little bit more, well, I'm trying to think of the word to use. It's not enjoyable, because it was definitely way more enjoyable, in my personal opinion, just to have that extra bit of story that went on after the main game. You know, you had your main quest and everything like that, but then you had this extra layer of story, and I actually like it. But you also have the DLC that added an extra layer of storytelling as well. You know, you have the Isle of Armor, which is, of course, where you encounter Dojo Master Mustard. I'm not even kidding, that's his actual name. I love that. Where you're basically training, but you're also trying to acquire the power of the armor, which is, of course, Kubfu. This, as soon as I knew I could have access to the DLC, that was the first isle I went to, because I wanted Kubfu so badly. Like, as soon as I saw the trailer for Isle of Armor and I saw the introduction of Kubfu, I was like, I want him! A Kung Fu Bear! What better Pokemon is that for me already, you know? I mean, freaking Kubfu looks like a teddy bear. I mean, seriously, come on. Why would I not want him, alright? He's so cool and so cute. I love him. But what was more cooler was the fact that you're actually getting a chance to bond with him in the different environments and stuff. And once you fully bonded with him and stuff, you can take him to one of the 2 towers. I know some people would have liked to have challenged the opposite tower just for that extra layer. But considering how one tower was like, I don't think that's a deal breaker, in all honesty. I think it's one of those things where it's like you're only fighting one Pokemon per battle in the tower, so it's like, it's not a big deal. So I can understand not being able to encounter the second tower, but being able to choose the evolution type just through that method, it added an extra layer of the story. And what's cool is that even after completing that part, you had an extra layer to go on, you know, where you could train Cubfu and his evolved form Urshifu to the next level, and then finally challenge Master Mustard in one final climactic battle. I absolutely love the extra layer of storytelling. And then of course you also have the fact that the Crown Tundra, where basically you had this father slash ex-gym trainer. It's kind of hard to say what his backstory is. Didn't care much for his personality. He was definitely too over hyperactive. He kind of acts like that cringy father, which he technically is towards his daughter, but it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had to hang around with this guy. But then you got to encounter with the crown Pokemon. I actually kind of liked that story because it was weird because it kind of reminded me of, like, you know, whenever you're watching the Pokemon movies where it involve the legendary Pokemons and stuff, it kind of reminds me of that, and I kind of liked that. I liked how you can actually go into and help this Pokemon regain his power, regain his royal stature with the horse and everything like that. And I actually kind of liked that. But what was even more so was the inclusion of being able to track down the individual legendary Pokemons, you know, where you got, like, obviously you got the 3 legendary birds, being that of Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno. They were really cool because they were out in 3 different areas and you had to chase them down. Hunting them down was really fun in my personal opinion. I loved that. The Rigus, however, the Rigus was actually fun too because you had to not only find tracks of where they're located at, but you also had to have, like, specific items. They wasn't really hard items to have. They were somewhat specific, actually, whenever you read the text and stuff, and you can get into them, and it was really fun to challenge them and stuff. But after that, it wasn't too big of a deal until you got to the Max Lair. The Max Lair, in my personal opinion, is the best thing out of that DLC. The best. And here's the reason why I say it's the best. Because, according to what I read, you can capture every legendary Pokemon possibility. Anything that's a legendary Pokemon, from Mew and Mewtwo all the way up to, like, Entei to, like, Palkia, so on and so forth. Any legendary Pokemon that have existed in the past, you can capture them in the Max Lair. Record, they were randomized, but it was still cool to have that because you had to work on, like, okay, you had to pick your rental Pokemon to start off. Then you picked a pathway of which way to go up until you got to the actual legendary Pokemon itself. And, you know, you had to go by either you can either go through the route of, like, weaknesses, or you can go the route of, like, healing the Pokemon and stuff like that. And I really, really enjoy the Max Lair. This is, like, my favorite part of the game because it was like a never-ending thing because you could capture these legendary Pokemons, you know? Like I said, you can capture Entei, Suicune, Mewtwo, potentially Dalkia. So, I mean, you gotta remember how many legendary there actually is in Pokemon. There's, like, a freaking lot. And I love that. I love how you can do that because, again, back to the whole Dynamax thing, it was like challenging a boss. And I love that. That was really awesome. Not only did you have to plan how to get to the legendary itself, but you also had to figure out, okay, how am I going to tackle the legendary with a particular Pokemon? Because you can't do it with your party, you had to do it with a particular Pokemon to select with and stuff. And I love that. And I also love the fact that you can do this either offline or online with random people. And I love that. I love that feature because that actually is really cool to have. That's a really cool feature to get right there, in my personal opinion. It's just, you can play it online or offline. It's completely up to you. And to me, this is actually the brilliant part of Pokemon. Just being able to randomly capture certain Pokemon through the dens and even legendaries. This is just a cool element to have. I wish, though, that you could actually have these legendary Pokemon labeled in your Pokédex, because when I caught Entei and Suicune and stuff like that, I was looking at the Pokédex to see where they were at, and I didn't see them. They wasn't in the normal Pokédex, nor were they in the Tundra Pokédex. I thought that was so odd. I was like, why aren't Entei and Suicune? And that's whenever I discovered the legendaries aren't actually labeled on there. The only ones that are labeled are the legendaries that you do encounter in the base game, not from the max lair, which I thought was odd. I kind of wish they had done it to where you could have a Pokemon Pokedex entry, but they're not on there. I don't know why, but I tried looking. Maybe it's like a glitch or something. Maybe it's my game, but as far as I know, I could never find them. So really, in all honesty, despite the controversy, Pokemon Sword and Shield is a really good and fun game. Did it meet my expectations of what I would have wanted from a console experience Pokemon game? No, it didn't really meet all my expectations, but, you know, for it being a Pokemon game, you're not going to get like an over-the-top, high-quality looking game. Like, we're not going to get Detective Pikachu quality pictures, no. If nothing else, we could get something like a Persona 5 quality, you know, where it's anime, and because of the anime-esque features, we're not going to get anything beyond that. But because of it being released on Nintendo console, especially the Nintendo Switch, which isn't a powerful console, it's a wonderful console still, in my personal opinion. You know, the fact that you can have it on your television and then boom, carry it with you wherever you go and stuff like that. It's still a beautiful console in my personal opinion. But the hardware limitation does kind of jug it a little bit lower. But in terms of quality, it's not that bad. It's not bad in my personal opinion, but there were times that I saw some weird frame drop issues. Like, the weird thing is, you would think you would have frame drop issues happening in the wild areas where you had like Pokemon out there in the areas themselves. The game kind of like pops the Pokemon and pops NPCs at a certain range and stuff, and that never bothered me. That never bothered me really, because really, it kind of makes sense for why they would just pop up right there and not really be an issue far distance. It helped load the game better. What was really weird was the frame drops actually happen when you encounter other trainers to battle them, you know, where they does the little screen of verses and stuff, and all of a sudden you see that the frames kind of drop. And I'm like, that's a weird frame drop to happen, you know? Out of all the frame drops that could happen, it happened right there. And I was like, why did it drop so suddenly? Because after that brief moment, it's back to its normal frames. And I'm like, huh, that's an odd frame drop. I don't know why that happened, but aside from that, it never had any problems. I never had any issues with it. And then personally, in my personal opinion, this might be, and I don't know if I will ever do it, but I can honestly say, because of the max layers and stuff, because of capturing legendaries and everything, I enjoyed that still. If I ever was to go back into Pokemon Sword and Shield again anytime soon, I might, and this is coming from me who has never done this before, but I might actually go for a complete Pokedex. That's how fun this game had been. And in my personal opinion, for a Pokemon game, that's all you really need. That's all you really need. You want it to be just fun. You don't want it to be over-the-top action. You don't want it to be completely mind-blown stuff. You just want it to be fun and entertaining. And if Pokemon can deliver that same enjoyment that is carried in the past, now, can't believe I'm saying this, 25 years, then what's wrong with it? You know, I mean, what's wrong with having a Pokemon game to enjoy? And I'm glad that we have another actual console game and not just a handheld. I was so hoping for another true console experience, and we actually have one. Could it be better? Yeah, there are definitely some improvement that it could have done, but it's not a experience that hindered it. If nothing else, it still felt like a good Pokemon game. And because of the DLCs, it made it slightly better, really. So in terms of ratings, I would give Pokemon Sword and Shield, that's kind of the bad thing, really, because in terms of Pokemon games, it's not bad. It's really good and really fun. But in terms of video game quality that you would expect nowadays, especially with how today's gameplay and everything like that are, it definitely could have been better. But where would I put it in terms of my ratings? I would probably put it somewhere between a 4 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5. And that's kind of hard to say, really. Like, if you were to put Sword and Shield by itself alone, you know, without the DLCs, if it was by itself, it would be a 3 out of 5. But because of the DLC expansions that came with this one in particularly, it would be a 4 out of 5 for me. Like, literally, it would be a 4 out of 5. Like I said, the DLC expansions help make the game a little bit better. And with these sub-stories, these extra layer of storytelling and stuff like that, I actually enjoyed it. I really did. And so, looking forward, I hope they would do more Pokemon games where they have extra story. Like, you have the main quest itself, you know, battle 8 gyms and then go for the Elite Four, or in this case, the champion, and with some extra story bits. And I hope in the future we get more like Pokemon games to where, aside from the main quest itself, you also have the fact that you can do other smaller things, you know? And I would have loved to see more smaller stuff to where it had like a sub-story and stuff like that, like a sub-quest or whatever. I would have loved to do more. So, hopefully, looking forward, especially with the whole Pokemon Legends Arceus, maybe we might get that. I hope we do. If not, it won't hurt it that badly. It will just be a lost opportunity of like enhancing an experience for Pokemon. Because let's put it this way. We've had 25 years. Let's raise the bar up when it comes to Pokemon games. Let's finally raise that bar. Can we raise that bar? I would love to see it finally get raised. Because, I mean, Sword and Shield didn't actually raise the bar. It definitely was enjoyable, but it didn't raise the bar of, like, the standard Pokemon game. It felt like we were still in the standard game for, like, the past 20 years. So, nothing enhanced it, but nothing weakened. You get what I'm saying? It's sort of like the Assassin's Creed series, where they release the same game over and over and over, just with a different splash of paint. A splash of paint. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like I said, Pokemon Sword and Shield wasn't a bad game, and I did enjoy it. It's just in terms of like being a overall great Pokemon game, or is it better than every other Pokemon game? Not really, no. But your mileage may vary depending on who you are, depending on what your criteria level is. Maybe you're a hardcore enthusiast Pokemon fan, in which case this is not that ideal Pokemon game to go for. But if you're a casual like me, yeah, you'll definitely enjoy it. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later. Oh, and also, too, there is one more negative thing that I do want to go ahead and add, and that's the fact that my Yorkie Pokemon that I caught got Mike Wazowski'd. That was pretty sad to see that. Just, why did you Mike Wazowski Grover? Why would you Mike Wazowski this cute little thing, you know? See you in the next video.